China is stepping deeper into the Middle East crisis, and Xi Jinping has just delivered his bluntest message of the entire war. With the region still burning from Gaza to the Iran front, the Chinese president used talks with Jordan's King Abdullah II in Beijing to put the blame where Western capitals refuse to look. The Palestinian issue, Xi declared, remains at the heart of the wider Middle East conflict. Not Iranian missiles, not the Houthis, the occupation and the war on the Palestinians. And his prescription was just as direct: renewed diplomacy, a return to Israeli-Palestinian peace talks, and the creation of an independent Palestinian state. According to the official summary of the meeting broadcast by Chinese state radio, Xi laid out 4 principles for ending this conflict, and read together, they amount to a point-by-point rejection of everything Netanyahu's war stands for. The first principle is a political settlement centered on the two-state solution, with negotiations resuming toward an independent Palestinian state as soon as possible. The second is the one that lands hardest in Washington and Tel Aviv. Palestinians should govern Palestine. In Xi's framing, that rule applies to the future administration of the West Bank and to the reconstruction of Gaza after the war, which is a polite, diplomatic way of burying every scheme circulating in Western capitals for foreign boards, outside administrators, or occupation authorities running Gaza over Palestinian heads. Beijing's position, delivered to an Arab head of state, is that the people of Palestine are not a problem to be managed by others. They are a nation to be governed by themselves. And the third and fourth principles sharpen the edge further. Xi's third principle is humanitarian protection, and it comes with an assignment of responsibility. The international community, and particularly the UN Security Council, must do more to protect civilians, ensure aid reaches those in need, and prevent further humanitarian catastrophe. The fourth is what Beijing calls fairness and justice. International law must be respected, and the world must address not just the symptoms of this conflict, but its underlying causes, working toward a comprehensive, fair, and lasting settlement. Xi paired all of it with support for a comprehensive ceasefire, an end to hostilities, and a warning that the region's disputes must be resolved through political and diplomatic channels rather than continued fighting, with the sovereignty of Jordan and every state in the region respected. Symptoms versus causes is the tell in that language. In Beijing's diagnosis, the bombing campaigns are the symptom. The denial of a Palestinian state is the disease. And the man sitting across the table made clear which diagnosis the Arab world finds credible. King Abdullah praised China's position on Middle East affairs and its support for what Jordan considers the legitimate cause of the Arab countries, saying Amman is prepared to maintain close communication with Beijing and keep working toward de-escalation. A Hashemite king, one of Washington's oldest partners in the region, sitting in Beijing and endorsing China's reading of the conflict, is its own headline. The diplomatic lane that America abandoned when it chose bombardment over mediation has not stayed empty. China is driving in it, with 4 principles: a ceasefire call and an Arab monarch nodding along. And while Beijing talks about ending the war, Europe is quietly preparing for the war to reach it. Iran has just handed Donald Trump the most direct snub of this war. Days after the American president declared the Strait of Hormuz an American territory, China entered it, under Iranian protection. Fresh maritime tracking data shows at least 2 Chinese-flagged vessels entering and transiting the Iranian side of the world's most critical waterway. According to Iran's Mehr news agency, citing maritime tracking accounts, the vessel Nuway is sailing from Al-Hamriya port in the United Arab Emirates through the Iranian side of the strait, while a Chinese-flagged oil tanker has been spotted entering the waterway at the same time. And the timing carries a second sting. This comes just days after Reuters reported that 2 Chinese state-owned companies had barred their oil tankers from transiting both Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb. Some Chinese state-linked shipping may have suspended transits, but Chinese hulls are still moving through Hormuz, selectively, carefully, and on the Iranian side of the water. Trump calls the strait American territory. The ships that actually sail it are Chinese, and the flag that waves them through is Iranian. The selectivity is the message. Hormuz is the artery connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the wider Arabian Sea, a waterway that before the war carried around 20% of global oil and gas shipments, and any major disruption there sends shockwaves through world energy markets. So when Beijing quietly keeps its trade routes open despite every risk Washington has stacked on that water, It is making a calculation out loud that Iran's guarantee of safe passage is worth more on this stretch of sea than America's threats against it. Passage through Hormuz has stopped being a right of navigation and become a map of alliances, drawn one transit at a time. And Iran is now formalizing that map into law. On August 23rd, Iran's Persian Gulf Strait Authority, the body Tehran has placed in charge of maritime traffic through Hormuz, announced that vessels violating Iranian transit protocols could face restrictions on future passages, and it spelled out the menu of consequences in a post on X: fines, detention, or confiscation. The authority went further, calling on cargo owners shipping to and from the Persian Gulf to review its list of non-compliant vessels before chartering ships, to avoid what it delicately called potential problems. Read that as a shipping company would. Iran is running a compliance regime over the world's most important oil corridor, complete with a blacklist, and it is warning the market to consult it before signing contracts. That is not the behavior of a country under blockade. That is the behavior of an administrator, and administrators charge for their services. Iran has moved closer to making passage through Hormuz a paid service. The Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Commission has approved Article 3 of its Strategic Plan for the Security and Progress of the Strait, state-run IRNA reported, a provision requiring vessels from countries permitted to use the waterway to pay for services provided by Tehran. The Commission's spokesperson listed what the fees would cover: maritime assistance, environmental services, fueling under special conditions, insurance, safety, and other services rendered in the strait, collected from authorized vessels and payable in Iranian reals or another currency Tehran designates. Strip away the administrative language and the shape is unmistakable. Iran is writing the Strait's rulebook and attaching a price list to it in its own currency. Every clause deepens the dispute with Washington over who actually controls this water, and Washington's answer to that question arrived at a campaign rally. At a rally in South Carolina, Donald Trump called the Strait of Hormuz an American territory, and he did not leave it as a figure of speech. He posted a map on Truth Social depicting the strait as new U.S. territory. On stage, he wrapped the claim in a tour of gas prices, Iowa stations at $1.95, the booming stock market, and the promise that once America is finished with the Islamic Republic of Iran, oil will fall lower than ever. Iran, he said, will never have a nuclear weapon, and it wants a deal so badly that Washington is not even sure it wants one. It is a remarkable split screen. In South Carolina, the strait is American territory on a poster. On the actual water, an Iranian authority publishes blacklists, a parliamentary commission drafts toll schedules, and Chinese tankers transit the Iranian side under Tehran's protection. One of those two realities is enforceable, and Tehran's chief diplomat could barely hide his amusement at the other one.
The Islamic Republic of Iran, and we're going to have to put out the nuclear weapon stuff because they're going to have a nuclear weapon, and we cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We don't even know if we want, because I view the Strait of Hormuz as an American territory right now. It's an American territory.
Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has dismissed Washington's new economic offensive as a recycled pressure tactic.
This is a recurring scenario. From the crippling sanctions proposed during the Obama era, to the maximum pressure campaign during Trump's first term, and now the crushing sanctions. They are all presented under different titles. It is the same old bullying we have always seen from the American establishment. In a sense, it is a recurring movie that they keep replaying. We know it by heart, and we know how to confront and deal with it. The fact that they talk about military operations, saying we will strike, we will do this or that, and now they are back to bringing up those same old plans, it shows they are truly desperate. Facing the great nation of Iran, they cannot think of any other options, so they keep bringing back the same old plans. They must know that there is no way forward except by speaking to the Iranian people with respect and finding a solution based on justice and dignity. They must set all these paths aside and return to the path that has been tried before. The Iranian nation responded with a language of dignity and respect.